she lies, but she's a lowlife. And she's a very low IQ person and a lowlife. And I don't imagine the Democrats are going to have a person like that running their party. If they do, they'll never win an election again. It would be very hard. But I can't imagine she's going to last long.
And what do you think of Governor Gavin Newsom's? Sorry.
To be smart, you do need a brain. You can't get around with little quips. And I've watched her. I've only heard of her for the last couple of days, and I watched her make a speech, and she can't speak. And she truly is a low-level person on the very important chart of intelligence.
Yeah.
And really, it's nice to have intelligent people running your operation.
Yeah. And he has no policy. There is no platform. Exactly. It's his ego and his aggrievements. Right. He doesn't know anything about policy, about running anything. He didn't know anything about business on The Apprentice. He couldn't pronounce the word arbitrage, as I've said on this show before. It flew into a rage and soiled himself, on camera, because he was frustrated at a 3-syllable word that he didn't recognize. That is a term you learn on day one in business school, by the way.
Right. Well, I mean, we played sound bites from Pete Davidson saying that he couldn't read when he was on Saturday Night Live. That he was like, the guy can't read.
No, he can't. He had a learning disability of some sort. No shame in that.
No,
right?
not at all.
And armchair diagnosis, but there was something going on there that they didn't treat as a kid. They didn't do the simple thing of getting him some extra help after school. They hid it. That's why you've never seen his grades. That's why he went to military school. That's why they had people taking his tests to get into Penn. That's why he had Michael Cohen threaten to sue Fordham University, which he went to for the first 2 years before transferring to Penn, to not release his grades because he was a D student. He literally cannot read. And that doesn't even, that deals with some sort of ability, cognitive issues in the actual act of reading. That doesn't even speak to how intellectually incurious he is.
Right.
Even if he could read, he wouldn't want to because it's work, and he doesn't work,
Very, very true. I mean, because we heard that like the President Daily Briefs were practically just photos and drawings so that he could understand it and not very thick. So that it's like...
Yeah, they'd give him pictures and cartoons and stuff because he would zone out when people were talking about, actual things that are happening around the world, which is the job of the president, right? You get a brief, like it's popping off here, there, and there, and we have to be prepared and make decisions in each of these cases. And here you're talking to an idiot who's not even showing up in the Oval Office till noon because he wants to watch Fox and Friends and snort Adderall all morning. You know what I mean? Do his hair. Right? And then he doesn't even pay attention to the PDA. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, it is. And then for people to give Joe Biden grief, I mean, the other night when they'd met on the tarmac, that was after midnight. He looked fine, quite awake, thank you very much. And for the grief that he was given saying, he goes to bed at 8 o'clock at night, well, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. That's a reasonable hour.
100%. I mean, I said PDA, I meant PDB. I was thinking of NDA, which is the thing I broke when I worked with him because I had to talk about what an idiot he was. But to your point on Biden, I agreed completely. Biden was completely cognitive in making decisions. He knew what the decision was. He was negotiating the hostage exchange the day he stepped down, right? The president, as I've said on this show before, he's not taking in the crops at harvest time. Right? You know what I mean? There's people around to do that stuff. You're paying him to make difficult decisions in private. It's not even a performative job that we think it is these days. And we've lost that battle because now it is a performative type thing. Roosevelt was only awake probably a few hours a day. He was in a wheelchair. He had every health issue in the world, and he prosecuted and won World War II. Along with Churchill and our other allies. It was... To me, it drove me crazy thinking like he goes to bed at 8 or he's sleepy. I want a president who goes to bed at 8.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't have a problem with that. Okay.
Can I make one more point on
Absolutely.
that? I know we're out of time. It's not like they don't wake you up in the middle of the night when things are going crazy. And also, Trump wanted to put a lock on the door in the private residence. No president had done that. This is true. Your listeners can look it up. He wanted to put a lock on the door because he likes to be in private because he does all the things that I've talked about that he does. The reason you don't have a lock on the door is so they can run in at 3 a.m. and say, God forbid, there's a missile crisis or whatever it is.